All right, guys. I guess we're live here for the post game show here with Jamie Uyama and Christian McCollum. I brought on Christian because I'm still not feeling well, and I'll probably be coughing a whole lot through this. So I'm gonna probably put myself on mute.
There you go, Mike.
I'm sorry.
They'll believe you. They'll take your word for it. You
Yeah.
don't
Yeah,
have to
I'm,
fake
I'm,
cough.
I'm going to put myself on mute for most of this, but I wanted to make sure we had a post game show. I'm going to give you my thoughts real quick on this. I think the most telling thing about the game was when Luganville and the announcers were talking about, does Notre Dame move up in this game, and because of this game, and the answer was no by everybody. And I look at this as a missed opportunity. I think Notre Dame had an opportunity to make a statement. They knew that the quarterback wasn't going to play, and I just think offensively they just, I don't know, just weren't sharp. Just was not very sharp, and should have scored a lot more points than they did. Uh, it is what it is, but it's a missed opportunity, and hey, it's a win. Everybody's got to be excited about it. You're 9-1, got to be excited about that situation. But look, man, if you're trying to get to that next level, you have to start playing like a team like that next level. And when you have an opportunity to play a quarterback, or the quarterback is out of the game, and you have the opportunity to make a statement, they just don't. And to me, I think it's a missed opportunity. And I do. You could tell Kelly after the game was talking, and he wasn't very happy about the offense. He wasn't going to criticize him, but I think he realized it was a missed opportunity too. And that's just the way I feel about it. Obviously, defense played great, did everything that they possibly could, and it just, I really think the offense had that opportunity to make a statement today and didn't. Your guys' thoughts?
One thing I thought that struck out to me was the end of the first half. I thought they could have tried to get at least a field goal range there, and I wonder how much that kind of. It seemed like the Virginia got some energy there coming out of halftime, where if Notre Dame could have scored even a field goal, you're kind of able to like really take the wind out of their sails. And it seemed like they were kind of going conservative from there to what you were saying, Mike. Obviously, if you're just trying to win the game and you're winning the game, you're up 21-0. It makes sense to say, hey, I like going into the half 21-0, but you're trying to avoid disaster there. God forbid a pick six changes everything around. So I think that's the thought process. But it did, you talk about that middle eight that people talk about. Virginia definitely won the middle eight, and I think that's almost where, this game was a blowout. Notre Dame, it was 28-3. It was a blowout, but it wasn't a dominating feature like that. So
Yeah, it wasn't a close game. Like you can't forget they won. It was extremely comfortable the whole way, really, right? So you can't brush that aside. Um, I have to agree with Chris that not you had 1:15 on the clock, you had two timeouts. I don't understand that. I get they had a long way to go, but even if you look at the personnel that was in, like Jaden Thomas was getting reps in that time, didn't really make sense to me why they did that. I don't know. I mean, but I think that's it's really kind of funny because Brian Kelly, obviously, very famous quote from him is the "get used to it." Trying to take the kill shot against um,
Tulsa.
to Michael Floyd against Tulsa, and um, they kind of never been that. Like really, the whole time he's always been a conservative coach and coached. Often safely, often smartly in a lot of ways, and it has won them games. But yeah, this was an opportunity that they could have definitely blown out this team. But I have to think that there was a lot of stuff in his head where he's thinking about the injuries, like all the freshmen they're playing on offense. Like he said, they played seven true freshmen on offense. Like that's incredible. I can't remember the last time. I mean, it had to be like 2007, probably the last time they played this many true freshmen. And obviously that was a bad team. And then even if you look at the defense, like they played like X Watts and Prince Coley had not played. They literally got in garbage time at the end of the Navy game, and they played a big chunk of the second half in this game. And some of it is because maybe those guys earned some opportunities, but I mean, to me, like Prince Coley, I don't want to call him out. He's a true freshman, right? But he looked lost out there. He looked like he wasn't, you know, a guy ready to play in this kind of game. But they needed him to play because they only had Bauer and Bertrand inside, right? So they needed him to play. It's like Jordan Patel played Rover in this game. You know, losing MTA and Drew White before the game, that's massive. That is really, really massive. And I think even in this game where they racked up a ton of sacks, they definitely missed Myron in this game as a pass rusher. Like they didn't really rush great with 4. A lot of those sacks ended up being kind of coverage sacks, and they got pressure from blitzing. So that is something to kind of remember in this game. I know we were starting off negative, and they won the game, and the defense played well. But yeah, that definitely stuck out to me.
Look, I would have been okay with it, right? If I felt like Virginia had any hope to score if they threw a pick. I mean, you know, there was no threat at that time with them offensively to where, you know, you're like, oh man, if Jack Coan throws a pick here, you know, things could go bad. And it just wasn't even that. There's just, I don't know. It just was one of these things where it's just never a consistent focus, grind, effort. We're going to punch people in the mouth. Look, here's the thing that bothers me about it, okay? What do you think? Let me ask you both this question. What do you think Nick Saban would have said after a performance like this in this situation?
Well, he would have been talking before it, you know. He would have been throwing his headset and yelling and screaming and kicking and that stuff. So, I mean, I think that's a good point. But I also think, you know, I think overall the point is good, what you're talking about in terms of it's almost like changing the narrative where you say, look at Notre Dame is dominant. They dominated, blah, blah, blah. But in terms of like right now, like I don't think no matter what happened tonight, they weren't going to – these rankings committee people, they're pretty conservative once they pull these rankings out until the final couple of weeks. So, you know, I think they're moving up one spot regardless of if they won 100-0 or 28-3. I think they're going to just go up one spot. I don't think they're going to jump anybody else this week. Now, in the end, it's a big picture narrative, you know, that it could hold some weight, but I don't think it was going to move anything immediately.
I disagree. I disagree, and I'll tell you why. I think if Notre Dame would have went out and played well, right, and exploded and showed people, man, this offense is really starting to take off, because that's what everybody's worried about. They think, oh, Notre Dame's offense isn't going to be able to hold up when they play Ohio State or they play Georgia or any of these types of things. The reason they're ranked where they're at right now is because the offense sucked, right? I mean, that's the truth. That's why they're at where they're at, because the offense sucked. Well, if you have an opportunity to show your offense doesn't suck, do it. And especially when you know the opposition doesn't have the ability to hurt you at this point. So take some chances. Make some big plays. Dial up some things to make some big plays. And I love running the ball as much as anybody and all that type of stuff, but I just think that this was a missed opportunity. Now, again, you win, great, right? But I'm just telling you, Nick Saban would not be happy with this, and I'll tell you, there's a reason Nick Saban is where he is, because he will not tolerate this kind of stuff. And that's what I think. Go ahead, Jay.
You know what? I think that's too much, Mike. I honestly do. I agree with Christian there, because I think if Notre Dame would have won this game, say 45-3, I don't think there's that big of a difference in terms of the eyes of the committee, because they would look at it, and the main thing is they would look at that 3 points and say, you know, Brennan Armstrong didn't play. Brennan Armstrong didn't play. This Virginia defense isn't good or whatever, but I mean. I don't think it would have made a difference. I don't think Notre Dame isn't there. They're not, based on what they did in this game, based on the competition there. I don't think the fact that they just took care of business, they won 25 points. I think that is automatically is going to be weighed higher than if they won 42-3. To be honest, I don't think that would have made that much of a difference. It's not going to make that much of a difference in the long run.
Here's where I disagree. When they talked about Ohio State today, what did they say? Wow, look at that offense. Look at how explosive that offense is playing as well as anybody in the country. And they'll move up because of it, right? They're not going to say that about Notre Dame because they didn't play that way.
They did play it against a good defense. Purdue's like a decent defense.
Well,
And I'm not sure Ohio State will move up, right? What are they, 4? You know,
no, they're not
Alabama,
moving
Georgia,
up. They're not.
they're not going to. There's nowhere to go. You know what I mean? That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Once you get there, it's tight. There's nowhere to go. They're not going to jump. Ohio State and Oregon's playing now, but you know, Ohio State doesn't really have room to move up. If Oregon wins, they're not moving up no matter what. We can't hear you, Mike. You're on mute.
You're
coughing.
This is the way to do it. When Mike gets on a roll, we got to get the mute button. That's what we need.
Step on
the mute button when he's on. We couldn't hear you, Mike. So I don't know.
Couldn't argue the Ohio State. How Ohio State wouldn't jump up, so he pretend like he was on mute.
I keep shutting it off because I'm coughing. But I'm just saying this is where I disagree because if Oregon plays a tight game today, Ohio State's going to jump them. They are. They're the better team. Everybody knows it. And you know why they know it? Because they showed it on the field.
But Oregon beat Ohio State on the field.
Hey, Michigan State beat Michigan.
I know.
Did that matter? Did that matter?
That's so dumb. I just thought that was so dumb.
They're not. If Oregon loses, Ohio State's gonna move up, and guess what? So is Notre Dame. Notre Dame's gonna move up. They'll still be up ahead of Oregon. But I just.
I'm not saying if they lose. I'm saying if they play a tight game against Washington State, Ohio State's gonna jump them. Mark my words.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But you know what? And even when you're talking about the top 4, it doesn't matter as much. Because you're in, whatever. And it's hard to know, right? If Notre Dame would have won 50-0. I mean, who do they go ahead of? Maybe Michigan State? You know, maybe. But even that, but like I said, I understand your overall point. I just don't think it manifests itself in an extra spot in the rankings.
They'll jump Oklahoma.
Yeah, because Oklahoma lost. But they were going to jump Oklahoma. They would have jumped Oklahoma if they won this game 28-27. Probably,
yeah.
So, and – you know, in terms of the game, like Jamie said, we're being negative, obviously. Just, you know, they could have – I feel like what Jamie said is right? This was a dominant game. They were never in danger of losing this game from the second possession on. And the thing I liked about it is, like, Notre Dame's got a really good mix of, like, star veterans and young players, and the opportunity for these guys to really show what they can do. I mean, Kyron Williams, every time he gets in the field, I mean, that guy, he's so special. He's special. I mean, Mike Mayer, you know, getting to see that guy do what he's doing is really, really – and you see what's happening with Kyle Hamilton. You got to enjoy this stuff while you can see it. And then you mix in the young guys. You know, Kevin Austin, this is what we've been waiting for. But then you got guys like Lorenzo Styles showing flashes of what he can do. I just really, really love the mix. And then all the other guys, you know, talking about, you know, Diggs and Buckner and the linemen. It's a really, really – they've done a great job of blending those young guys with these established veterans. It's really impressive and fun to watch.
And Mike Mayer is so good that you forget that he's still got another year. Like it's really insane. I mean, even if you think about it, like we have to talk about the defense and the job they did in this game. And I understand that they're playing this freshman quarterback, but they took advantage of it. They took full advantage of it. It was a 25% havoc rate. It's the most havoc they've had in who knows, like since like week 3. And they attacked, they blitzed. And I bet this was not going to be the plan if Brennan Armstrong played. It was definitely not going to be the plan, but they definitely adjusted to it. They attacked. You have to say they're missing. So let's see. Starters. MTA out. Drew White out. Kyle Hamilton didn't even get mentioned on the broadcast. The guy's a freaking All-American. Didn't even get mentioned on the broadcast. He's out. You know, Maris from the beginning of the season, he's out. Right. And obviously they've had other depth pieces go down too. And with all that, like this was a setup. I understand they played freshman quarterback. They still had a lot of talent on this Virginia offense. And they didn't get anything really, you know, like, and even when they made plays, they were like good plays. Like Thompson made a couple of great catches, a couple of great plays after the catch. Man, you got to tip your hat. Ramon Henderson, first game at safety. Guy looked fantastic. I mean, the big difference was that we could see he can run, and that's what they've been missing at safety, speed there, right? And because even on the plays, obviously he had the big half tackle for loss on the one blitz, made the interception, really nice play there. But there were all these other plays when they took deep shots, and he's there, and he was stride for stride with the guy, and that was big. That was really big, and That's one thing. They haven't had that really without Hamilton. And I'm not saying he's not Kyle Hamilton, but just to be able to have athletes there that you can match up, a guy that have the potential there. And now all of a sudden, we're talking about, what they're going to do at safety next year. Well, I mean, maybe Ramon Henderson and X Watts, those are two pretty good athletes. I don't know that they're going to be great players or anything. I'm not going to judge it off one game or just flashes from X Watts, right? But I mean, there's at least potential there. And I think even 2 games ago, you couldn't say that. So to me, that's a very positive thing. Also very positive to see a guy like Riley Mills, who hasn't really done much, get more of opportunity in this game. He is a really good pass rusher. And you see that too, right? So get that guy more time. Love to see that too. So a lot of guys stepping up on defense, and you have to give credit to Marcus Freeman and the staff did a tremendous job.
Hey, how about that big tight end that Virginia has? He's like a waste of space, huh? Even my dad is not a college football expert. He's like, man, that guy, he's so big, he doesn't do anything, huh? Every time he threw to him, he's doing nothing. I mean, credit, Ramon made a great play and Bo made a great play too, but man, you would have thought that guy could easily have 12 catches.
Yeah, and he's been dominant this year in those contested catch situations. I think he was, he's about like 80% contested catch here. Isaiah Pryor did a really great job on him a couple times. Had that one at the end there. And you brought up Bauer. We have to mention Bo Bauer. Playing with his hair on fire. Like if he goes down, they're in serious trouble at Mike linebacker. Starts of the game, run stuff, did a tremendous job blitzing, tremendous job in coverage as well. Like had the game of his life, first start of his career, and had the game of his life. Awesome. Just, couldn't be happy for a guy like that. And that's another guy that, before you're saying, I know he's graduated, maybe he wants to move on with his life. I don't know. Right. But right now, I think that's a guy that you got to try to convince to come back because they're going to need the depth there. I don't think it's as easy to say, JD Bertrand slide into Mike. I mean, Bo Bauer, if he plays like this, that's a guy you want to have out there.
And I'm not a big rah-rah guy. I think sometimes the rah-rah stuff is can be come across as not so genuine. But his rah-rah energy from the start, even when he's running down years ago on special teams, that stuff's contagious. It's infectious. You're out there and this guy's bouncing around. You're bouncing around too. I think that stuff really kind of matters, and it might not. It can help a little bit, right? It's just a jolt, and I think he does a great. He always has done a great job of that. So that's something that can be added there.
Definitely. Sorry, Mike. Go ahead. You want to?
No, I just wanted to let people know if you want to ask questions, if you would in the chat, type in question and then whatever your question is, so we know that it's a question, and we'll get it to Jamie and Christian, and they'll answer your questions and everything. I agree with you guys. Defense, I mean, it was really, really a great job, and you can say whatever you want about the quarterback, but they've still got some really talented players at wide receiver. And really, I didn't think the quarterback played that bad. I mean, he made he made a lot of he made some mistakes, but the kid's got some talent. There's no doubt about it. And they still had to make plays, and they still had to bring them down. They had the sacks, and again, I think I like seeing Ramon Henderson in there. I like seeing X Watts in there. They haven't been overly productive at safety until, once Kyle Hamilton was out. And I like seeing guys that have an opportunity to show what they can do. And it's amazing that each time they put somebody in there, they're actually pretty good. So, I'm hoping that they can do this and I'm sure they're going to finish the season and win. And, I don't think that they're necessarily a great playoff hopeful team. But at the same time, I'd still like to see them take the next step of, on offense, we're going to start playing the way we should play. I mean, we can say whatever we want. 7.5 points against this defense is terrible. It just is. And they should have done better. They really should have. And it's a win. But the result is 7.5 points. Not good. Not good.
I agree. I think part of that is game situation, right? They weren't trying to score, so if they needed to score 28 in that or 21.
No, they were trying to score. They just weren't effective doing it.
Well, they
I think they
fumbled at the
took their
5
foot
too,
off,
right? That was one
and
of
I
the
think
other
they
things.
took their foot off the gas. But you're right. Your overall point's right. Though I want to say a couple more things about defense. First of all, you just say, "Oh, the Brendan Armstrong's out." You know, Notre Dame dominated. They had a true freshman starter. I thought when the first play of the game, when Virginia motioned to Wildcat, I'm like, "Oh, geez, they got no shot. Like they're gonna throw this junk Wildcat every play. They don't have a quarterback who can throw." But you're right. That kid played all right. He didn't play bad, and a lot of the mistakes he made were like safe errors, right? So he's got, zero blitz and he's just throwing the ball 30 yards downfield over some guy's head. That's better than throwing a pick six. So he played out well. And then that, Notre Dame, they didn't prepare solely for this offense because that would have been silly. They prepared for Brendan Armstrong and this. So their performance isn't like, oh, they knew Brendan Armstrong was out. They've seen the backup, he's limited. So they're going to focus on this. So it's even more impressive when you consider it that way, where the kid wasn't like some kid playing left-handed. And Notre Dame could have only prepared for this on a limited basis.
Also, too, it's about time Notre Dame got a break playing a backup quarterback. Where you look at all these teams that Notre Dame is playing, and all the injuries that Notre Dame has had this year, and how it's kind of set up. Like, yeah, I mean, I know George Karlaftis is a great player, but it helps when all of a sudden you're down to the third string left tackle. When he's playing in that game, right? Like, there's things that have gone against Notre Dame in a lot of situations. And Notre Dame, I think this was the first backup quarterback they played all year, right? I mean, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I can't remember that. And usually you tend to, that happens at some point. Like Pitt last year was a perfect example, right? Where they end up playing Joey Yellen instead of Kenny Pickett. And, Christian's favorite football player, Kenny Football there. Yeah. Kenny Football's balling this year, so I have to give him credit. I think he's
every
gonna be
week every week someone messaged me, "Hey, this Pitt quarterback's pretty good." I said, "That's our guy, Kenny Football, man. We've known him since he was a sophomore in high school down in San Antonio."
Literally every time this guy does something good, I think of Christian and just like, should I interview this guy? I don't know.
He had a good Twitter profile,
Yeah.
and then we watched him.
He was good at
he
was good at the combine. He was good at the
He
combine.
stuck out, and that was a hard place to stick out. There was like 500 kids there, and you're 200 yards away. He stuck out. Good for him, and I'm glad that we had him pegged. And the other guy we had pegged was Drew Jordan.
That was a Drew Jordan. He's had an okay career, but not.
Yeah, but I mean, he was a nobody then.
Yeah, he was.
All right, we're gonna add some questions. I'm not gonna introduce each question. I'll just put it up on the thing, and then you guys go ahead and tackle it. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna put the first question up right now. Well, I did. I was going to. Hang on a sec. There you go.
Okay, I can't see it, Mike. I don't know.
Oh, you guys can't see the question?
No.
Oh, okay. I guess
I can see the comment. Is it the why keep two timeouts in your pocket?
No, this was a question. Why did we take the ball on the road against a true freshman quarterback?
I think they just like taking the ball, right?
Ryan Kelly just likes taking the ball.
I'm a defer guy myself. I would always defer on almost any circumstances. To me, it comes down to when is it more important to have the ball, later in the game or early in the game? Because that's where your extra possession comes in. So I defer all the time, no matter who I'm playing. But Kelly always takes it. So I think that's just what he does, and he wasn't going to change it.
The other thing, you get the ball, so you're going to give up the ball in the second half. That's why you have to try to score there, right? At the end of the second quarter, because
100%.
Yeah, you're giving them an extra possession. Like, I don't know. That was not good. I mean, you could give Brian Kelly's credit for, he called the timeout. They went back out, ran, converted on the fourth down when they were going to kick the field goal. That was good, right? But that second quarter, I mean, it's still, when you take the ball, you have to, like you said, that middle eight, I'm a huge believer in that middle eight. And that's why I think too, I'm always a defer guy too. So I mean, I don't agree with it, but I mean, then again, Notre Dame has won 45 games in the last 4 years or whatever it is. Right. So
yet not even close to the worst decision I watched today in the end of a half. I was at the Lawrence Academy BBN game today. Lawrence Academy has the ball. Time's running out. It's 30 seconds left. They run a draw. Then they get like half of it. The other team calls timeout. They want to get the ball back. Lawrence Academy runs again. They get a first down. The clock's ticking. BBN calls a timeout with 1 second left. Lawrence Academy's out of timeouts. Defense calls timeout. 1 second left to let Lawrence Academy throw a Hail Mary to the end zone. They didn't convert it. But Shea goes, what the hell are they doing? I was like, I don't know. Makes no sense.
Well, that's like that South Dakota State game today. Did you see that?
At least they were trying to run the clock out. These guys literally called the timeout so that the Lawrence Academy can have another play.
No, I don't understand the taking the ball. And once again, another first series where they didn't get anything. It's just.
I was a good drive, you know.
They did.
They do this all the time, though. Good drive and come away with nothing. You know, it's just, I don't know. It's just a lack of focus or whatever. They just can't seem to finish the first drive. I don't know why. Next question. What will it take for BK to take the reins off the offense next year? It's been 12 years and mostly boring, low-scoring offense.
I think, Tyler Buchner, if they're going to be going with him full time, I mean, I think they're got to be pretty excited about opening up the playbook and how you see him in there now. It's mostly, him running the ball. I know they just have to be, they're obviously not going to be able to do that like that if he's the guy full time. And they have to be kind of just really, really excited about the possibilities. I mean, you talk to defense, you just watch it, right? How annoying is it when Notre Dame is facing a mobile quarterback and it's 3rd and long and everyone's got him covered and this guy just makes a play? That's just so annoying. So when your playbook opens up dramatically when you have a true dual threat. And I liked what they said on the broadcast about being a true dual threat. A lot of these guys like Denard Robinson and stuff, they call them dual threats. It just means they're running quarterbacks. Tyler Buchner has a chance to be a true dual threat. And I think that if you're ever going to see it, that's going to be when you see it.
That throw to Lindsey today was a big time throw too, right? And that's the kind of thing that you could see them. I really think that's what they're missing. You need that. You need that quarterback who can do that. And I think, you had some of that with Ian Book, but we don't need to go into it, but we know his limitations.
Not the same though. Yeah, but his limited. You think about his limitations. You think about him passing his limitations, and maybe him not pulling the trigger sometimes. But his limitation, he was a good runner for who he was.
Game. Yeah, they couldn't do the same kind of stuff.
Yeah, no. Tyler Buchner's take it to the house. He's a Brandon Wimbush type runner. You know what I mean? So it's almost like taking Brandon Wimbush and Ian Book, putting them together.
Agreed.
All right, so our next question. Do you all think our deal with the ACC hurts our strength of schedule? Other than Clemson, the conference still seems incredibly weak.
I would say that, I think, they've obviously won, 23 straight games against the ACC in the regular season. So, I think it's more important to win, to be honest. So, imagine Notre Dame was in the Big Ten, right? And then they had to play, Michigan, Michigan State, Penn State, and Ohio State this year. What are the chances they're going to run the table with this team? On other teams, maybe, right? The chances of them running the table with this team, I would say pretty slim, right? So, it's an advantage playing to me, they only get Clemson every few years, and yet they still get credit for Power 5 wins. And if you want to play teams that are wouldn't you rather play Wake Forest, who's ranked, but that Notre Dame has more talent than them? NC State, they're a ranked team, but Notre Dame on paper has more talent than them. And that's everyone in the ACC, really, right? So other than Clemson. So, I think it actually has worked out really advantageous that they're going against a conference that is, technically a Power 5 conference, but it's really only a Clemson away from being the Pac-12.
And I don't think strength of schedule is especially under this format is something Notre Dame it's really going to work against them, right? It's pretty obvious. You got to be undefeated. Notre Dame's undefeated. Yep. They'll get in. If they're not, they probably won't. And looking forward, Notre Dame does a good job, maybe too good of a job scheduling. They're playing the ACC and Ohio State next year. So, good luck with that, and USC. So, I don't think, when it comes to 12, if it goes to 12 and Notre Dame, now you're talking about, can Notre Dame get in with 2 losses? And now maybe it's a weaker, schedule. Maybe that's a time to think about it. But right now, I think it's, Notre Dame, you got to run the table in order to ensure it. And then, people talk about, I don't think Notre Dame will ever get left out undefeated under this current format.
No, never.
No, I don't think so either. All right, next question. Quick question regarding an ISD sub. Been on the fence for it a bit. What's the advantage of the varsity forum compared to the regular subscription? There really isn't much of an advantage. It's more of a just kind of a donation that people make when they buy the varsity subscription. Just basically, we appreciate you type of thing. The only real advantage is you don't have to deal with any ads. There's no ads on the site. There's no ads on anything when you have that subscription. And then the varsity or the overtime podcast. But those are really the only two advantages. It's just more kind of a we appreciate you type of thing, and that's really what it all boils down to.
It's ESPNU time, I think. Here, I think Kansas is about to go for 2 in the win here.
Oh, really?
They're in overtime now. Texas has stormed back.
Yeah, I saw that. So, are they going for 2 to win?
I don't know if they called timeout to review something or what, but
I'm still watching Oregon and Washington State, and
I'm sure this Kansas staff is going to get it. They got a great play. They got a great drawn up here. 2-point play. It's gonna be money.
All right, folks. Once again, if you have some questions, feel free to in the chat put question, and then post your question. We'll go ahead and answer it. Don't really see a whole lot of new ones in here. Oh, here's one. Hang on. Somewhat off topic, but were any of you guys caught off guard with Sonny Styles' commitment to OSU? I was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't think I thought that Matt Freeman definitely was plugged into the recruitment, and he had heard that Ohio State was making a move with Sonny, and that was something that they felt very confident with it. But I mean, I don't think there was any indication that he was going to decide anytime soon. And certainly, like most guys, how they do it these days. There's not many Emil Wagners out there that come out of nowhere, and there's usually guys want to make a big deal. I'm not surprised, but based on the Styles family, that it wasn't like a big deal, and it just was kind of an announcement. But I mean, it's a big loss. He's a stud. Like
not huge. Oh, the Kansas got it. Not hugely surprised by the decision, like because it was going to be a Notre Dame Ohio State battle, but very surprised by the timing, like Jamie said. In one of the things with the timing is some of these guys when you feel like they're torn, like Sonny Styles has no reason to decide early unless he's sure, and if he's sure, more to him. But it's not like one of these things where he ain't worried about his spot getting lost. He got a spot. He can in National Signing Day. He got a spot.
Yeah. Another question: does Sonny Styles flip to Notre Dame? He will shine in Marcus Freeman's defense. I don't think so, unless something crazy happens. I think anybody who decides this early, they have a pretty strong, understanding of where they want to be and why. And he's been to both places many times. I'm sure that Notre Dame will continue to work him, but we'll see what happens. Chris, did they win? KU win?
KU won, yep.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah. so like Texas is blowing all these leads, and someone tweeted, smart play by Sark. Now you don't have a halftime lead to blow, and they didn't blow a lead, but they blew it.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
We got a super chat here, Jamie. More money for the Kai Ueyama College Fund. All right, it says, awesome show, guys. As always, just a comment, the United States Federal Witness Protection Program has done their job regarding Drew Pine. Yeah, I feel bad for Drew Pine. I don't know. I don't know what to expect there. Chris, what do you think? You know better than anybody.
I do. In knowing Drew, right? So not talking to Drew, not talking even close to Drew about it. Knowing Drew, I know who he is, and it has to kill him that he's a guy who's always operated with a chip on his shoulder. I don't think people understand like the kind of hate and ridicule he would get when he was a youngster. Like when he was like real young, 13, 14 years old, people hate on him for no reason. And we would have talks about it. And one of the things Drew always said was like, these people don't even know me. And I think sometimes even the fans, they look at these kids like they're not people. You know what I mean? Like these are 14, 15, 16-year-old kids. Imagine being 15 years old and having 1,000 people hate you that do not know you. And you're also a really good person. So in terms of Drew, he's always had that chip on his shoulder and used it as motivation. And getting first of all, I have to know, I believe he was very frustrated without getting a chance. When the offense was sputtering and both Jack Cohn and Tyler Buchner were kind of not really clicking, I know it must have been frustrating for him to not even get a chance. Then he gets the chance, multiple chances, performs pretty well, and then does not get a chance again. So to me, not obviously Notre Dame's won every game, and Buckner and Cohen have been playing better and stuff like that. I'm not saying that they should be putting him in, but from his point of view, it has to be extremely frustrating to feel like you've done everything they've asked you to do. You've gone out there, you performed in big moments, and then you don't get a chance. So, I just know that has to be frustrating for Drew. He's an extreme, he's a team guy all the way. You can see him on the sidelines out there, bumping him up and being very excited. But he's a guy that wants his shot. And when people put something in front of him where it's almost like you can't do this or you're not worthy of this chance, he wants nothing more to prove them wrong. And he's also not stupid. So you see, I don't think that there's a great path for Drew to find his way to the field at this point without, Tyler Buckner or somebody getting injured, God forbid. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. You talk about, he's got to be somewhat close to his degree. Does he stick it out, see what happens, get his degree and move on? Or does he, work his butt off and try to compete? I don't know. But I just knowing Drew, I would find it very hard to believe that he's not chomping at the bit to go prove what he can really do somewhere else.
All right, got our next question. Why did Brian Kelly let the clock run down at the end of the first half when he had 2 timeouts? John, we've already kind of discussed this. I think we're all kind of surprised, and I think we all thought it was probably an opportunity there that he missed. And you guys want to add anything?
No, nothing really to add to it other than just I mean, I think he just made a conscious decision. They had a 21-point lead, and he just thought, we're comfortable in this. I think that's what it came down to.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I disagree with it, and I know you guys do too. But it's not like what are you thinking? Like, it's easy to understand what he's saying. I'm up 21-0. This team can't score. I'm comfortable with the 21-0 lead. Let's just go to the half. Now I disagree with that. I think it would have been better to push it. But there's an argument that can be made for what he did, and obviously it worked out just fine in terms of winning the game, which is all you're trying to do.
All right, next question. Kelly and staff have been criticized in the past for not playing freshmen. This year that has changed. Is that because the freshmen are better now?
I think some of that is true, that the freshmen are better. Like, I think Lorenzo Styles and Deion Colsey were better than Jordan Johnson was last year. So that plays a part in it for sure. Also think that injuries play a part in it, right? Because Logan Diggs had a great camp, and he put himself in a position to play. But if Sibo doesn't get in trouble, if Chris Tyree is healthy, maybe he doesn't get as many opportunities and get the chances, right? So it's all part of it, I mean, at the same time, Blake Fisher starting as a true freshman, first true freshman starter at left tackle for them, right? So, this is a really good class, especially on offense, and I think that has a lot to do with why those guys are playing.
Tyler Buckner is another example, right? Like, true freshman, but he's the dynamic player. Let's get him on the field. He can help us in certain ways, not because it's a change of philosophy. It's a dynamic player that can help us and win. I think it's a whole the whole thing of both talent and necessity.
All right, got our next question. Where do you think Arch Manning lands? Personally, I think it's Georgia. That's what he said anyway.
I have no idea where he's going. I'm not following it as much as these other guys because he's not a guy for any. But maybe Chris knows better.
Somebody that's generally plugged in the big picture, not following recruiting, just like in college sports. I was with last Friday and told me, and I believe he did say Georgia. I think he said, yeah, because this guy is a basketball guy who knows the coach at Georgia, and he said Georgia. I'd love to see him go to Ole Miss. I really would. I would love. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would love to just see that.
It'd be a fun offense.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think from what I heard last, I'm with Jamie, and Notre Dame offered Arch Manning. Obviously, they haven't got him on campus yet, and they have 4 or 5 guys they're really high on that. They really like their recruiting really, really hard. So Arch Manning's not in that top tier right now in terms of Notre Dame, but yeah, I believe the last I heard was Georgia.
All right, another question. Why doesn't Marcus Freeman run more 4.25? I mean, they've run some. It's nickel, but what do you think here, Jamie?
They don't have the personnel to
Mhm.
run it all the time. Like I think they don't have. I mean, you look at the corners that they have, and you look at the injuries at safety. You know, it, at first, right? You're playing. Before they even move Henderson, the fact that they had to move Henderson, and you're thinking about it, because Houston Griffith wasn't playing very well, and so in a situation where you're having Houston Griffith and DJ Brown, and then you're playing Tariq Bracy, Clarence Lewis, and Cam Hart. I mean, is it better to have that rover on the field? Probably. I think it's better at this point too, even though it's not a Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, right? And I just don't think they have the DBs where you feel confident enough that they can play nickel all game. And plus, some of the teams are playing too. It doesn't suit playing nickel, right? Like, and now it's different if you have someone who's, a big nickel that you can kind of, a chess match kind of guy. Sonny Styles is a guy that you'd run 4-2-5, and he would be that kind of DB slash linebacker, perfect for that rover spot. But, you got to have the right personnel for it. So I think that's why they don't really run that as much. And I mean, really the base is the rover right now, even though it's not the same as a classic 4-2-5. It's pretty close to it. It's more 4-2-5 than a 4-3.
Okay, next question. Mike, Jamie, and Christian, are either of you surprised Buckner has not played more, being likely that next year he's the starting quarterback? Thoughts, guys?
So I was in Jersey trying to go see Bergen Catholic, and those guys what I did. And I went to one of the Notre Dame alum meetups to watch the Virginia Tech game. And the guy I was sitting next to, when I told him that was the last time I expected Jack Cohn to see the field at Notre Dame, and he was like, I kind of agree. So in that sense, at that moment, I would have been expecting to see a lot more Tyler Buckner. But based on how Jack's played since then, I'm not. And you got to give Kelly and those guys credit for seeing that, adjusting the offense during the bye week, getting him to get the ball out of his hand quicker, helping him with routes to do that. So if you told me how Jack was going to play moving forward and that they were going to keep winning games, I really was down on the way they were inserting Buckner. It seemed odd early on, but I feel like they figured it out. So at that moment, right after the Virginia Tech game, I would have expected to see a lot more Tyler Buckner. But since then, I'm not all that surprised. I mean, Jack's been doing good, and I feel like they're trying to win more than they're trying to develop for the future.
Yeah, I think that's what it is with Cohn, especially. Like, he's played significantly better, right? So that's been a big part of it. There are times I think Buckner should probably play a little bit more, but I mean, I couldn't say that he deserves to be the starter, and that's what they'd be playing for. Like, they're 9-1, right? They're 9-1. They're still trying to make the playoff, right? So, yeah, they got to do whatever it takes to win.
Sorry, I'm struggling getting unmuted here. Very good question. Question statement. Notre Dame won't move up, and will get jumped by Oklahoma State, who ran up the score against TCU. Why does Kelly always play the nice guy? Style points matter. I don't know if they're gonna. I mean, I could see an argument for it. I mean, they scored 63 on TCU, and their defense is pretty good. So I'm not saying that they will, but I gotta believe that. I watched them. I thought they looked pretty darn impressive. They may not. They may not. But I like that. I mean, I would much rather that Notre Dame played that way, and it just didn't happen. But I think that matters. I really do think it matters, and I think it matters not just this year. I think it matters for the future. I think it matters for ranking next year. I think it matters when you're trying to get into the playoff later. Teams want to see, or I should say, the committee wants to see Notre Dame take that next step and look like one of those top 4 teams. And if you're not playing that way, and other teams are, it's hard to do that. Even though you continue to win, it just doesn't matter sometimes. I'm not saying that they're going to jump, but I do believe that this stuff does matter. You guys' thought?
I think you're.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
Jamie.
Chris.
No, go ahead.
I don't know that Oklahoma State's going to jump them. I think it's more important that style points do matter. Absolutely, they do. But I think it's even more important for just development and the guys on the bottom of your roster. Not even the bottom, but like the middle part of your roster, right? Like, so perfect example is Coley and X Watts, right? These guys didn't get in these games because Notre Dame's played all close games, right? And yeah, so if you get a chance to like step on the throat of somebody and you can get a big lead, well, that's when those guys get reps, and that's how like they go in there and they do well. And then you say, well, now we're going to give them more chances, right? And that's how you say, like, maybe Ramon Henderson, maybe this game. Imagine, I mean, I know Ramon Henderson played really well, but imagine if this game was Ramon Henderson's first start at safety and Brendan Armstrong did start this game. And that would be a pretty tough first start. Would have been nice if he got some more reps earlier, right? And I think, you know, all of that kind of stuff matters, and getting guys those reps matters a lot. And you want to see those guys get more chances. And Notre Dame's had these freshmen play on offense and gotten chances, and a lot of that is because of talent, but a lot of it's because of injuries. But if that didn't happen and all these guys are healthy, if Joe Wilkins was stayed healthy, Avery Davis stayed healthy, all of that, right? Then maybe you don't see as much of Styles and Colsey and all that. And I that's what you want to build for the future. You want to say, like, get these guys a taste and build up from there, and not have it just because of injuries.
Yeah, and like I said to Mike, it was like I don't know that they would have helped them in the rankings this year, right? This week, whatever, winning 49-3 or 28-3. But at the same time, Mike's point is like, I'll tell you this: I don't see a downside to it. I don't see a downside to them continuing to stay aggressive. You know, back in the day, you would beat teams 50 by 50 points before anyone would get offended. And to Mike's point as well, is like a lot of times teams are like being conservative. Take Kelly at the end of the first half, being conservative, but when you're playing against a team that's limited on offense and not going to do anything, I really don't see the downside between pushing it. And like Jamie said, getting these other guys in the work and not just handing the ball off over and over again, pushing it, working on things. You know, I'm not saying pull every trick out of the bag, but you can continue to work on things and throw the ball and be aggressive. And the other thing is, I think that helps your team. I think your team enjoys that mentality of like, yeah, coach is going for it. We're going for it. We want to put our foot on these guys' throat. You know, that kind of establishes a little bit of an identity within the team. So even though I don't care what the score would have been today, I'm not sure it would have helped them in the rankings. Maybe it would. Maybe Oklahoma State jumps them. And that we wasn't even looking at that from that angle. But I also don't see a downside to doing it. I wish they would have done it.
You know, the one I will say, the one thing that I think that it does help with Reese being so run oriented is, you know, if they ever do get into a playoff game, you're going to need to be able to run the ball against some of these teams. And I think in the future, if you're going to have any chance to beat Ohio State, you're going to have to be able to run the ball first, you know, at the beginning of the year. So there is a plus to doing what Reese does, but at the same time, I don't think it's a situation where, you know, like the play calls were not necessarily there or whatever. I do think it was somewhat conservative, and certainly at the end of the first half, it was conservative. It's more, to me, the execution of things. It's the lack of focus and the lack of sense of energy, or, you know, sense of urgency. And it's because if everybody sits around and says, you know, no big deal, don't worry about it, you know, we won, that's fine. You know, winning's hard. It's hard. If everybody takes that attitude, then when you need that sense of urgency to finish drives and to make those plays to finish drives, you know, well, we just didn't make that. We'll get it next time, you know. And I think that that's kind of a mentality. Notre Dame's played with that mentality under Brian Kelly. Even when they've been good, you know, they just haven't finished like they should have in a lot of games. And, you know, and it's been frustrating. And again, I go back to Saban. Saban wins because he demands. And I think there should be more demanding on that. Okay, next question. Turned in late, so I don't know. But it seemed like Ramon Henderson played well. Do you think it's fair to have expectations for him to become an above-average player in the end? To be honest with you, Jamie, I think this is a good position for him. If you remember, at least my concerns, and I think you had some of the same, when I'd watch Ramon, he always had the speed to be a really good player. he just didn't have the fluidity in his hips to turn left and right really well like a lot of great corners do. And so that was my concern. But he has size and speed to where he could be a great free safety, and we saw it today coming over and making that play. If he has recognition skills that the other guys don't have, plus the speed, I mean, he could really be. This could be a really good position for him. What do you think,
I
Jimmy?
think so too. And I mean, that pick today was really impressive. Obviously, he was dropping to the deep middle there, but he had to get far. That was range. He had to get far over to the other sideline to get there and tracked it. Because that's the one thing. If you watched him in high school, that's what he was, really good at. Where he was a far better receiver, right? Really tracked the deep ball well. So yeah, I do think he has a potential future there. So I think if you look at it, we've talked about it a million times on Power Hour and in post game shows too. We don't know what the future holds at defensive back. So if they can get a plus player, if Ramon Henderson becomes a plus player at safety, and obviously he's athletic enough to be that. I mean, I would say he had a pretty darn good first start. So, yeah, I think there should be some expectations that, he at least has a shot, right? I can't say that, it's not locked in. You don't want to hand this guy, the next Kyle Hamilton or anything like that. But I think he has a shot to be a really good player. And for right now, how many other guys can you say that for? I mean, even with X Watts, who I think did some really nice things in this, you still want to see more of him or whatever. But I think X Watts, though, one thing I'll say, that one play where he made the open field tackle, he was caught inside to change the direction there. That was big time. That was a big time play and really, really impressive. And, he just jumps out. He jumps out at you every time you see him.
Oh, sorry, I had to unmute. If all of you are on the college football committee, who is in each of your top 4 as of today?
As of today, so I think there's obviously 2 ways to look at it, right? Who's the best 4 teams and who's the most deserving? I'm always the most deserving guy, and even though I want the playoff expanded, people argue, well, the regular season doesn't mean anything. That's why I think the most deserving. So I would say Georgia, Bama. Bama loses to Georgia, they'd be out. But as of today, I'd say Georgia, Bama, Oregon, and I'd put Cincinnati in.
I think I would go with 2. Same. That would be my 4 as well.
I would say I would put Cincinnati in there, but I would flip Ohio State and Oregon. I really would. I think.
Well, what does it matter? Oregon beat Ohio State. They beat them in Columbus.
Yeah, but that was game 2. This is a
who
different.
cares? Then why even play that game? Why should Oregon play that game then? If you're going to go beat them and that doesn't matter, then they should just never play those games.
So should we just not Notre Dame is not a better team now than they were when they played at the beginning.
Sure, but if Cincinnati loses a game to like a comparable team that Notre Dame lost to, somewhat of a comparable team, I guess Stanford's not, but to a Power 5 team, and Cincinnati makes it over Notre Dame, and people are going to say Notre Dame's better than Cincinnati. I understand that argument, but you can't complain. You had a chance to beat Cincinnati at home, and you didn't. So Cincinnati goes over you. Or if that's the case, Oregon should never play that game if it's not going to give them the edge over that team.
It's a season. It's 12 games, and it's who looks good in 12 games and not just one. Head-to-head is one thing. Head-to-head is one thing. Yeah. And head-to-head, if it's recent, where this is where I had a problem with the Michigan State thing, because that just recently happened. Doesn't matter whether Michigan kind of blew it at the end. That was recent. That just happened. This is completely different. That happened at the beginning of the year. Ohio State's a way better team than they were when they played Oregon. They just are.
So that's where I go with my thing of the most deserving over the best. I don't care about who's the best.
Well, most deserving is why Cincinnati's in. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in at all.
And Oregon.
But I don't think they're most deserving.
They're more deserving than Ohio State.
They have a loss too. But which is worse? I mean, do you think Stanford is a better team than
Oregon? Of course not. Oregon? No, I don't. But my point is, if you're going to argue those 2 teams, who should get in Ohio State, Oregon, and it's like, oh, they both have 1 loss, they both have this. Oh, how are we going to do it? Well, Oregon beat Ohio State at Ohio State. I don't care when it was.
Nobody hates Ohio State probably more than me, but they deserve to be in.
I think Matt Freeman hates them more than you, Mike. I will say. Yeah, I think Matt hates Ohio State the most.
No, Matt did not have to deal with their fans like I had to deal with their fans when they played in that Fiesta Bowl. Trust me, nobody hates Ohio State more than me.
I think he grew up with them. He might have dealt with them on a daily basis his whole.
Yeah, but you didn't see the things that they were saying about my wife. I'm just
fair enough.
I haven't got that personal with Matt because he doesn't have a wife yet. But I'm telling you, it was brutal. It really was. So,
you know what? The one thing I'll say about Cincinnati that really hurts them this year is Indiana sucks. That if Indiana was even like a bowl team, that would have helped them a lot. And it just worked out with the schedule this year in the AAC. They're playing SMU. That's their like last tough game, really, right? But they didn't play, and UCF underachieved, right? They weren't good. Memphis is usually good. They're 5-5, right? So they haven't really like the AAC isn't good this year. And then they weren't even like their toughest game outside of Indiana was supposed to be UCF, and UCF isn't good. Well, no, I'm taking Notre Dame off of the rest of the schedule. I meant, but yeah, obviously Notre Dame is by far the toughest one. But just out of the rest of the schedule, they just it hasn't worked out for them, right? And that's the problem. That's their problem more than anything about being a Group of 5 team. It's like maybe if they would have played, because Houston is actually a pretty decent team this year. They got a defense at least, and they don't play Houston. And I don't know. I'm not sure how the divisions work in the AAC, but it just hasn't worked out for them where they haven't played the tough teams. Because at least they would say that's a good win, but it's like, well, when you kind of like, struggle a little bit and then you beat Temple, but Temple sucks, like that's not good. That's going to always look bad for you.
Okay, got a couple more questions. We're going to wrap it up because the guys got to do some writing, and so do I. Question: if this were 214 ND state of the program with this schedule, what would the record be? I don't know.
What's 214? Is that
2000? Or I'm sorry, 2014.
Yeah, but is that Everett Golson trying to not take a stack?
I think it was
the ball on the ground at Arizona State year. Is that year?
Yes, that was the year.
Well, this team. So the thing with Notre Dame that I always get nervous about is not being in a conference. They have no chance after they lose a game or two, and the wheels can come off like they do. So I think that team. I think like that team follow at the end of the year. But if it's that end of the year, they might not get out of Florida State with a win, and they might not beat Toledo with a win. And once that happens, like you're talking 3-9 territory.
The other thing people forget about that 2014 team is they had no depth on defense. And like, you're starting Joe Schmidt, and I understand he had a really good year, but you're forced to start a former walk-on at Mike, and then they had no backup, right? It was just true freshman backup. So imagine if instead of when Maris got hurt, Prince Coley had to start from game 1. Well, I mean, that's a different story, right? And then imagine, Sheldon Day and Jerron Jones, getting hurt at the end of the year, who in that Florida State game, those guys were big factors in that game. So you take all those guys off the table, and it's like you're playing like a true freshman. Daniel Cage has to get in there, right? Like, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the guy, but the guy who was the converted tight end who had to play defensive tackle and then never played it down again after that. Like, that was the situation there, right? They were beat up. They were really badly beat up, and they didn't have the talent, especially in the front seven. So think about all the injuries that Notre Dame has had this year. Well, at least they've had guys who can come in and play and be decent. Maybe they're not like guys to write home about, but a lot of these guys can be decent. Like DJ Brown is better than, the alternative of the backup on another, on the 2014 team, right? So that's the part of it. That 2014 team, I think they would have collapsed against the schedule.
All right, guys, we're going to have one more question. I think this is a good one. What do you think the odds are of Kelly winning a national championship? there always seems to be a gap. Recruiting misses, coaching hires, staff decisions, speed to change. Go ahead, Jamie.
I don't think they're very good. I think this would have been a year where it was wide open and they would have had a shot at it. Um, but things didn't work out obviously with injuries and stuff too. And then this was just a transition year. I mean, maybe if they had the 2018 roster against this schedule and then against this, so I think and I look at the next 2 years and I think Notre Dame's going to be pretty good the next 2 years and like way much better than they are this year in the next year. Cause I think they have a ton of talent. It's a lot of young talent that I'm excited about watching, but the schedule is like incredibly hard and maybe they'll get in with one loss, but they could have two losses because the schedule is so hard. Right. So, I don't know. And then put on top of that, I don't know how long he's going to coach.
Mhm.
So if you like the 2022 class they're bringing in, I think it's really, really talented. And if they brought in 4 straight classes like that, then I'd say, oh, Brian Kelly, I think he's going to have his chances of winning much greater. But you can't have just one class like that, and it looks like 2023, they're going to have a pretty great class too. So you can't just have 2 classes. Like it's got to be 3, 4. You got to have, that's the roster you just got to stacks on stacks on stacks of all these talent. And I just don't think that they're there yet to say, oh, it's going to be a high chance. I think it would be a low chance because so much else has to work out, including injuries and all that.
Christian?
I'm going to give you like a real answer. You say, what are the odds? This guy's like not very good. If someone's asked me what the odds are amongst my friends, you better give them a number for the odds. So I'm going to say 7-1. And I feel like someone that could help me with the probability odds. But like Jamie said, how long is Coach Kelly going to be there is the one thing. I'll give him 4 to 5 years, and that's probably long. Usually like 16-1 to start the season every year, somewhere in that range, 16 to 20-1. That's probably low because they know people will take them. So if you kind of play that out over the course of 4 years, I think 7-1 is probably a good number. Yeah, 7-1.
You're a gambling fool.
This guy said, "What's the odds?" He didn't say.
Yeah, well,
Brian Kelly can win.
He did.
Nobody. I mean,
What are the odds? So what are the odds?
All right.
Are the odds good or not good?
So
Very good.
yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I tell you this: he has no chance to win unless he finds a Brennan Armstrong. I mean, that's really what it is. He's never going to have as much talent as Alabama or Ohio State. He needs to get a special quarterback that can make it, and it may be Buckner. It may be somebody. Who knows? So I'm not saying that he can't win it. I'm just saying it's until he gets that guy, I think it's going to be really hard because I just don't think that the talent will be good enough, to overcome. I mean, Ohio State gets a Sonny Styles, but they get a Sonny Styles every year. Notre Dame is hoping to get a Sonny Styles one every 4 years, and that's just kind of the way it works. And the only way to overcome that is to have a dominant O-line, dominant D-line, and one hell of a quarterback. And, Kelly's had some nice teams, and I think that they've almost even overperformed at times, as far as talent and this and that. I think they've been a really disciplined team and don't beat themselves. And so I think he's a good coach in that regard. But I think because of the talent differential, it's going to be really hard for him to win one without a Brennan Armstrong or somebody who can just be that kind of Johnny Manziel, just game breaker. And they really need to find that at quarterback. And Kelly's never, ever had that kind of a player. And it's hurt him. The first, it's everybody wants one. They're very hard to find, obviously. You guys want to add anything?
No, I mean, I think they've never had that quarterback. That really is what it's come down to. They've never even really come close to it, right? Obviously, Ian Book's the best quarterback that he's had, and he was a good quarterback. He won a ton of games, but you put him up against a Trevor Lawrence, a Deshaun Watson, and you look at, I mean, Dabo is a good coach, no doubt. He's a good recruiter. But you look at the way they recruited, they didn't have that level of talent that was on the same level as Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. They were close, but what gave them that edge is because they had Watson and Lawrence, and they don't have Watson and Lawrence now. And I mean, you see the difference, and they have other problems too. But I mean, Lawrence cleans up a lot of mistakes for you, and you got to have that guy. So that's why so many people are invested in Tyler Buchner, because they think, well, maybe this guy has a shot. And if that guy and if someone has a shot against someone who doesn't have a shot, you're going to say, give the guy who has the shot to do that, because, Notre Dame fans are starving for a national championship.
Yeah.
All right,
I
folks.
totally agree.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where it's at. All right, folks, that's going to be it for the show. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you, Christian, for coming on, saving my ass here. I appreciate you coming on to kind of carry the load, since I couldn't comment as much. People probably prefer I don't comment as much sometimes. But thanks for listening, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that. We'll be back next week, Jamie and I, and it's an early game, right? 2:30 or 1:30, I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's early.
Yeah.
It's early.
Okay, so looking forward to it. Thanks for watching, folks. We'll talk to you soon. And hey, 9-1. Got to be happy with that. It's you got to be happy with it. I mean, it sucks they lost to Cincinnati, but they've really rebounded well, and I think it's a good job by the coaching staff to rebound as well as they have.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks for listening, folks. We'll talk to you soon.